All right, welcome back to segment 3 of episode, the first, second this is what we're talking about. The numbering system is fucked. This is segment 3 of
Yeah.
episode 2 of the full podcast, but episode 5 overall because of the test cases. We need to
So
figure
just to
that out.
clarify, this will be the last segment for the people listening to the segments and listening to the whole thing.
Yeah, I know. I screwed that up last time. Yes, so if you are listening on Friday, then or to the individual segment, this is the third segment of the podcast. But if you're listening on Saturday to the entire thing, then this is also the last segment. As I stated last time, only to realize halfway through the statement that it was redundant. This is the last segment, no matter what. So the idea behind this segment, where the first two we have some sort of a structure to it, the last one is going to be sort of a wild card. Sometimes we'll have ideas for what to do on here. We actually had a potential one earlier in segment 1. If you hadn't heard it, yes, we did, about certain audiobooks. Potentially listening to...
Oh, right, yes, that one. Yes.
But today, it's kind of just free form because we didn't have anything in particular planned for this segment. So I wanted to open up just by coming back to a story that I kind of started telling during one of the earlier segments that didn't really... It wasn't really relevant then, but I don't want to just kind of leave it out in the ether. And that's concerning the first time I came to the UK and had that ridiculous car. So anyone who... has been to the UK or has seen pictures of its roads knows that it's a bit of a squeeze. Smaller roads, especially when you're in maybe the countryside. Well, actually, even in the city, it's terrible. I'm glad I didn't try to drive in London, but they gave me
So in the countryside around here, you get far higher speed limits. So people fucking fly down the country lane. And there are there's so many blind corners. It's dangerous.
I had so much fun doing that too. When I drove out to Stonehenge with with Raymond, and it was just like 2 lanes, tiny roads, nothing but grass on either side, hilly terrain, 60-mile-an-hour speed limit. I had so much fun driving on that road. Raymond nearly shat himself. But that's neither here nor there. So what I kind of alluded to and you were making fun of me for is I wasn't given this car. When I originally booked this trip to take like a vacation over there, I was going to just book like a normal hatchback, small car for the whole time I was there. Realized I only needed the car for basically a day and a half total. And so the rest of the time when I was going to be in London, I didn't need the car. I didn't want the car because I would have had to drive in London. Glad I didn't do that. But when I rebooked the car to get the larger, or to get the, to say I only want a few days, and they were going to give me my money back, they're like, oh, but, you could upgrade to a better car, and you'd still get some money back. And they didn't tell me what the better car was, they just said a better car. And so it's like, oh yeah, sure, do that.
That's how you pitch a sale to an American.
I was like, yeah, sure, do that. And so I get there, and the car was so long, it didn't fit in almost every parking space. Like, there are hilarious pictures that came out of this where I've parked this car in a normal car park in the UK, and the back foot and a half of the car is sticking out of the parking space.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
Are you going to include a picture in the podcast this time? And are you actually going to remember to put it in this time?
I am looking at the timestamp right now, and I am noting it down, so I remember to put a picture of the car in there.
Yep.
But yeah, it was an interesting thing. But I didn't want to leave that story hanging because I know I mentioned it earlier, but I didn't actually want to go into that rant during that segment.
I mean, okay.
You know what? Actually,
Sorry.
you know what would be a really fun? Unless you have something that you were about to say, I was going to say what would be a really fun improv theme for this segment 3 is UK and US differences.
Well, I was going to say, because the topic you started this with is actually kind of matches up pretty well with the general topic I had in mind, and that is world travel.
Okay, let's go for it.
Uh, and that's because earlier today, as you know, my brother and his my sister-in-law
Hmm.
were over, and I don't think they've realized this quite, but every time they talk about Japan,
Yeah.
it makes me really want to go to Japan.
Yeah. And I,
Like some of the stories that they came back with. What are you gonna say?
oh, I was just gonna say, and yeah, I was just there.
Ah, right, yeah. So I think the last time I was talking to them about it, they were talking about this is the main thing that stuck in my head. They were talking about a bar or set of bars, I'm not sure,
Yeah.
where it's like an all you can eat, but all you can drink. So you'd put in it was a pretty darn cheap price. I think and it was like £7 for a man, and like £5 for a lady,
Hmm.
which is we won't get into that. But very interesting. If I wonder what if I like and then stuffed some balls up my jersey, whether I could get away with it. No, no, cheapskate or anything, but like the idea of an hour of as many drinks as I want, and we're talking like spirits here. Oh, to me, I'm not an ex-alcoholic, but like I've had enough drinks in my time. That is just temptation beyond resistance.
I,
Like,
I
oh,
I would be curious to see if they put a limitation on what things. I guess if it's mixed drinks, it doesn't matter. That wouldn't be
mm.
maybe such a good deal for me because I actually like, I
Yeah,
like I like
go
me my
on.
whiskeys and I like them to be like the nicer varieties, like a Scotch or something like that, and not like not like a cheap Scotch.
I do too. It's just I find that the faster it's gonna
Imbibe.
sound really bad. The faster I drink, the more communicative and talkative and sociable I am. And so generally the first drink or two are down pretty fast. Not because I'm not purposefully thinking, oh, I've got to drink to be sociable at all. I'm quite a sociable person.
You're
But at least for someone in England I am. Uh,
yeah, that's saying
but
something.
because God, you're like ridiculously. It's worrying how sociable you are. I don't understand it. It's a voodoo fucking magic. Um, but yeah, like in an hour, I reckon I could get through about. If I was really putting my nose to the grindstone, I could get through probably six drinks, six rums, obviously being doubles, so about 12 shots, maybe five. I don't know. I reckon if I was pushing myself, I could get through a drink per 10 minutes, and that'd be me done for the rest of the night. I would just be happy as Larry for at least like an hour or two after that.
Yeah, yeah, you
Um,
get yourself set up, and that. But I mean,
for like £6 or £7, I'm like, yeah.
to be fair, that is a very that's a pretty incredible rate if you're talking about because if you go out to like a restaurant or a bar here, the equivalent of that, something like $9 or $10, you're maybe gonna get like two beers. And that's it, or one drink that has some kind of a spirit in it. In my case, if I was going to get a whiskey rocks at a bar,
Yeah,
that's gonna run me at least like $10 in the U.S.
right.
Um, at least for a
Yeah, because you
decent
drink
whiskey.
very differently. It's like the whole culture of bars over there is pretty different to how it is here, like between America and the UK.
That I did notice
Um,
that going over there.
yeah, the whole tab system, that's pretty alien to us over here. Maybe we just don't trust people enough over here.
That was
But
something. Yeah, I noticed that going to Europe too. Like not just the UK,
mm,
but going to mainland Europe. It was like the drinks are paid for up front.
yeah. And it's not like you can take them out of the building. You have to drink your drinks inside the building. So it's not like you can just pay and fuck off out the door.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not sure. Because my memory is bad. If I were to go to America now, because I haven't been brought up in that manner of like
Mm.
paying tab, I would be afraid that I'd just be like, I already paid for my drink. I finished it. I'm gonna head
It's
off.
a there'd be people who remind you. There are people because
I'm sure the bounce would after
So,
a
and
knuckle sandwich.
we should clarify that that's specifically talking about getting drinks at bars. If you go into a restaurant, there still is a tab over there, right? Like you'd still get your bill at the end of the meal, correct?
Yeah, you still get it.
Yeah, yeah. I wanted to verify that. I that's how I remembered it, but I wanted to be sure.
Hmm.
Um,
Oh god, you and your mustard habits, but we'll get into that in a minute.
God, I love mustard. But yeah, go on.
Oh no, 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 no! I thought you were going on with the point that you were making.
Oh no no that was the end of it. Yeah, that is a very big difference here. Like everything here is like a tab. There's very few places I can think of like fast food or like a sub shop or a sandwich place or like a cafe.
Hmm.
Those places you might pay up front. If you're just gonna like go up to the counter, buy something, and then go and sit down in the area. That is there are places like that, but they're very specific kinds of places. You go to a bar,
Yeah.
you go to a restaurant, something, any place that it's like, sit down and eat kind of place or sit down and drink. Yeah, you get a tab at the end.
Yeah, I feel like that would make people. If you have a tab at the end, I feel like that would make people drink less because they're constantly thinking, "All right, this total is going up every time." In England, you pay straight over the bar. Like you could
The
forget
money,
how much you paid before you go back to your table.
the money's already gone.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about it. It's not your problem anymore. Um,
Well,
yeah, I feel like if I cause on my worst drinking nights, I could spend over £100.
whew.
And so that's like $120
To be fair,
on one night of drinking.
to be fair, when I was in Japan, they had the hotel I was staying at, beautiful hotel. It was in the middle of Tokyo, in Shinjuku, and they had a bar on the rooftop. It was like a lounge, and you could order
Hmm.
drinks up there. I spent about what is it like 10,000 yen, which is about $90, but that was.
Hmm.
That was three drinks because I was ordering like this.
Jesus.
It was a nice whiskey, and also there was a huge markup because it was downtown Tokyo in a fancy hotel.
Yeah.
So
No,
there's that level of clarification.
the most expensive drinks I've bought, the one local to me, the most
Mm.
expensive drink I bought has been a zombie, which I'm sure I've talked to you about this before.
You haven't actually. That's a drink that there's actually a girl I dated that I think drank those. Like that was her favorite mixed
Really,
drink. Yeah.
that's a dangerous girl. So a zombie is, I think it's 3 or 4 different kinds of rum with a bit of fruit juices and stuff like that. It's very, very strong. And in the city that I live in, there's about. I actually, on one night, I found 3 different places that serve them. Other than that, I can't find them. It's very rare to come across them. And they all taste slightly different. I think there is an official recipe somewhere, but
Yeah,
yes, it's a very strong drink. Costs about £10. So that's $12.
yeah, yeah. Thereabouts.
But probably for alcohol to money straight amount, the most expensive drink I've definitely had is in London. Um,
Oh my
I
god.
ordered I was just in a bar with a friend who lived in London, and I ordered a drink. And where I lived at the time, in Bournemouth, you would get a pitcher. So that's like what, 4 pints or something,
Yeah, thereabouts.
for like £6, £7, and it was like Curacao and lemonade, and it was a fairly strong cocktail as far as they go, but it wasn't strong. I would literally hold it by the pitcher and drink it straight from the pitcher.
I remember you did that
Uh,
when when we came to visit you down
Right.
in that area.
Yeah. So I was used to this being like £7 for a pitcher.
Hmm.
And I was in London, I saw a drink that I recognized, okay, I said, okay, I'll have that. They put this tiny little freaking like whiskey glass on the table with like a third of a pint or something of this stuff in it. It's the exact same stuff. And it cost £8.
I feel something that needs to be clarified here. By the way, you're talking about pints. This is another cultural difference
Oh
here.
yeah.
A U.S. pint is 16 ounces. A British pint is 20 ounces.
Oh. I didn't know
Yeah, your pints are actually 25% bigger
that.
than
We get
ours.
more out of a pint.
That's why I never understood what. I remember somebody talking about hating how they couldn't get a proper pint in the U.S. and I never understood it
Right.
until I went over there. It was like these beers seem bigger.
Man, maybe that's why we're such alcoholics over here. God, I say it like I'm. Yeah, it's it's not a problem.
Yeah, there's
Uh,
what was there's something you were saying in that sentence reminded me of another. This has become
it's just
cultural.
too easy over here to get drink. I think because especially because the drinking age in America is 21.
It is, yeah.
Over here it's 18.
Isn't it 16 for some things?
It's 16 if you're at a restaurant and your
Yeah.
parents there. I think.
That's what I thought. So that's another little bit of a misconception in the U.S. is it is 21, but that's to the universal one is you cannot buy liquor yourself if you are under the age of 21. But there are some states that allow like that at restaurants. If you're 18, you're with family or something like that. It can be like 18 and you can buy like beer or wine. Or there are other states, I think it's Colorado, if you are 16 or above and at culinary school, you're allowed to drink wine.
Yeah.
There's little nuances there. It's 21, but not a lot of people in the U.S. know there are exceptions to the rule. But yeah, either way, it's a very different. Largely because of the history of prohibition, the U.S. has a very different relationship to alcohol than a lot of Europe.
Yeah.
I think the only countries on Earth that have more restrictive alcohol laws than us are in the Middle East.
Right.
I think they're the ones that do allow alcohol also have the age of 21. But across the rest of the world, I think Japan is close.
They have some quite dubious laws in the Middle East.
Well, yeah. Let's not get into geopolitics. But Japan.
I mean, this is meant to be about travel, and it's turned into alcohol talk. I feel like this happens every week. We end up talking about alcohol. We used to do a dedicated freaking alcohol segment,
Well,
but not
and-
today.
Yeah, I know. That was one thing that we did discuss, and I'll bring this up again. I think I mentioned it in one of the earlier segments. An idea we had for this third segment was doing like a tasting of some kind of alcohol and then just kind of discussing. But I think it's because it's something that both of us actually are fairly passionate about. We have tastes regarding it.
Yeah.
When we were talking about dieting and cooking in one of the other episodes, I was mentioning that like I had a coworker who was really into like having the best
Notes of
artisanal
cinnamon.
spices. Yeah, notes of just like they loved this particular kind of spice and their food just wasn't right without it. Me, I don't have that kind of a palate, so I don't care. But I'm very particular about like the whiskey I drink. I want it to be like I have my favorite whiskeys are the really smoky, peaty Islay Scotches because they have that a very rich flavor and they're bitter. They have this warm harshness to them that I really like.
Kaiser, save it. Control your urge.
What save this for a future podcast? Is that what you're talking
Save
about?
it for having the alcohol conversations.
Yeah. Well, going back to the world travel then, like on another concept. We were talking about Japan, and you kind of got off talking about that bar that your brother had gone to. I never found somewhere like that, but I found two other things. One was that, and I'm not sure if this is everyone, but they had a whiskey bar in the hotel, a whiskey and cigar lounge they called it, and Japan still
Is it
allows
in where? Japan.
Japan, yeah. Japan still allows indoor smoking in most places, like most bars. They don't in restaurants anymore. So, but actually some restaurants they do too. I went to a restaurant for lunch one day when I was there, and they had ashtrays where there was a dude that was playing Pokemon Go in the corner while smoking and drinking a beer.
That's such a... What demographic is that?
I don't know, but that was what I saw for lunch. But then like the hotel like they a whiskey and cigar lounge they had there. I went down there. I was reading a book and having a whiskey. the bar actually had a lowered floor, so no matter where you were sitting, like you were sitting low to the ground, but the bartender always was below your head height.
Right.
Like they were even lower to the ground. And I'm not sure if that was on purpose. Like there's a lot of cultural, like Japan was one of the first places I went to where I seriously noticed like cultural differences.
Hmm. Well, one of the big things about Japan, which a strong part of the reason why everyone in our groups kind of talk about it so much is that it's such a leading figure in the gaming and anime industry, and in the merchandise industry. Like I can't imagine I can't think of any other place on the planet that has
That kind of
Hello
influence.
Kitty plastered all over the front of its storefronts. My brother showed me a picture today of a storefront which was literally the whole storefront was Hello Kitty's face.
I God, I went to, when I was over there. I went to Akibahara for a bit, which is supposed to be like kind of the nerd capital of Tokyo. I was
Right.
embarrassed getting off the train. Like there were
Yeah.
there
Oh,
was
you
a
said about the things on the skyscrapers, didn't you?
there was a skyscraper that like from top to I say skyscraper it was probably only about 10 to 20 stories, but
Okay.
it just a giant anime girl in a miniskirt plastered across the side of the skyscraper. And
Yeah.
just like I was embarrassed walking down the street. I'm like, holy shit, this is too nerdy for even me.
Hmm.
Um,
Um,
but yeah, it's
something I
very different
sorry.
cultural feel when you go over there.
Yeah. Something something he also mentioned though was that sorry, it's because this is fresh in my mind that I'm talking about this so much.
No, it's
Uh,
fine. This is where we just talk.
One thing that I brought up before the podcast, and I said I'll kind of save it for
Hmm.
then, was a store called Super Potato,
Oh yeah.
which is a really weird name for a store, but maybe it's like it sounds better in Japanese or something. I don't know.
What?
Super Potato. But it's a store dedicated to retro games and things.
Oh.
And apparently he went in there and jokingly was like, "I wonder if they have this game that was not actually released in England at all." And they had it. It was a GameCube game, which yeah, it wasn't sold at all in England. I don't know what reason for. And so it's like some kind of super limited edition thing they just had. And so I'm curious about like what all the other games that because you hear a lot about games that come out in Japan but nowhere else, and particularly older games. There's more. There's that added thing of you remember probably some aspect of it when you were growing up. You played a similar game to it, and you're like, I wish I had that.
Yeah.
Like the original Pokemon games, for example. They probably have all of the original Pokemon games
I
that already sold out.
I don't remember if I told you this story or not, but I definitely haven't told it on the podcast. So I played a lot of the Pokemon games. I loved the Game Boy and the DS Pokemon games. I was like they were going to release Pokemon Black and White, but they weren't going to release them in the U.S. until like 2010. This was probably like 2008 or 2009. They'd already been released in Japan, but it was going to be another year till they come out in the U.S.
Yeah.
I managed to get my hands on the Japanese Pokemon White or Black. I don't remember which one. And I played through the entire game in Japanese. I had no idea what the hell was going on. I couldn't read anything.
It's
But
like Skyrim. You don't need to read it. You just need to go bonk the thing on the head.
well, when somebody tells you to get a certain item, you kind of need to know what that item
Oh.
is. So
Well.
there was a little bit of stumbling where I tried to figure it out, but I played through the whole game in that way.
Yeah. There aren't many fetch quests in that game. It's mostly just go to gym, fight
Yeah.
through the wild, go to gym,
Yeah,
fight Final
catch
Four.
this critter, train them, and then fight them against this
Yeah.
guy's critters. Um,
Teabag Brock, all the important achievements.
oh, Brock. Did he ever end up finding true love, or did he just keep hitting on every woman he
I
saw?
didn't really watch the Pokemon TV series.
Neither do I. I haven't watched it
I
since
didn't-
I was like 10.
Have that channel as a kid. Yeah, we had CBBC, but that was about it when I was young.
God.
Didn't
All right.
have the Disney Channel.
So we're coming up not on the end here. We're about 6 or 7 minutes away from where I think we should probably finish. Let's
Okay.
try to like finish strong. Find a topic, something that we can talk about. Something maybe story, maybe something that can bring us home. You got any ideas?
There is a game that was suggested to me, and I mean, when I give you the synopsis of it, you can decide whether it's good enough or not.
Mm.
Which was described as Guild Wars, if you remember what that game is
Yeah, I played it.
like.
Yeah, Guild Wars, by
Uh,
the way, being an MMO, a free-to-play MMO, kind of medieval themed, but with dragons.
yeah. So Guild Wars, but imagine if it were an anime. So if you're in a town or city, there's people budging everywhere, as you get with any MMO. The
Yeah.
moment you go out into the wild, unless you're with a party, you don't see any other people. Uh, that's coming out relatively soon. I've suggested to try that out.
Interesting. I mean,
Uh,
MMOs have always been well. That's something I can kind of go on. MMOs have always been kind of hit or miss for me. I can only
yeah.
think of two MMOs that I ever played enough to make it to late game.
Okay.
One was Fantasy Star Online. No, sorry, Fantasy Star Universe. Fantasy Star Online was an early MMO for the PC and the Dreamcast that was
Mm.
later re-released for the Xbox. I played that a decent amount, but Fantasy Star Universe was out for the Xbox 360, um, and it was again like a kind of a light MMO. It was a console MMO, but me and my high school friends played it all the time. We played it all the way to late game, had multiple characters, really got into the game. The other one was Star Wars: The Old Republic, and that one I only played for so long because I was really into the KOTOR games, Knights of the Old Republic, the single player ones. And this
Mhm.
was kind of a soft continuation of those games, even though it was set about 300 years after the second one. And I mostly played it solo. Like, I didn't join guilds or clans or anything, but I played through it, and I enjoyed the story enough to keep me going through all the grind and whatnot in that game. So
Yeah.
when I hear like brand new MMO and it's along these sorts of lines, except it's this, it just MMOs need to have a certain thing to kind of hook me in. I'm trying to get into ESO with you guys, Elder Scrolls Online, and the only
Yeah.
reason I think I probably could get into it is because I really loved Oblivion and Morrowind and Skyrim. So
Mm.
I could probably get into that.
It's Elder Scrolls is a game that as you've seen, I've played a lot. I don't think I would recommend it to anyone though. I feel like the quest. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm one of these terrible people who skips dialogue because there are so many. I've been playing that game like try hard levels of just mashing through the text, and there is a lot of text just to get the actual gameplay. And I've been doing that for like 2 weeks now. No, more than 2 weeks. It's been almost a month. Jesus.
Yeah, we've been playing it for a
And
while.
I am only about a quarter of the way through quest, and that's only like the main story quest. There's so many side quests and other things you can do. So it really is a massive, I don't say waste of time, but a waste of time. Um, I I don't really play MMOs. I never played World of Warcraft, which was a big one back in the day. I was always a RuneScape. Is RuneScape an MMO?
I think by the strictest definition, it probably is.
Right. I don't really classify it. It's completely different to any other MMO you really see out there. Um, and the only real MMO I've played previously is Guild Wars, and that was when I was a kid.
Yeah,
Which
RuneScape's a game that I don't really know anything about because the only thing I really know about it is people I didn't like in high school played it. And so that kind of poisoned the game for me, so I never even
Yeah.
tried it.
It's something that you had to play as a kid if you want to enjoy it now. I think
Yeah.
you got. I love the old graphics, the really really low polygon count graphics. I think it's iconic. But if I were coming into it in this day and age, I would be like, wow, that looks awful. Also, I don't understand any of the things because there are so much like playing League of Legends. If you started playing it early on, you got to know it, and as it progressed, you'd learn new things slowly as it
Yeah.
released. Coming into it these days, I'm like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. Everyone else in the game knows exactly what they're doing. I feel like that's the same with RuneScape. There are so many new things in RuneScape that a new player would be absolutely boggled by what they think they want to do and how they would go about doing it. Like, even I've got to look up wikis of every quest.
That is the problem with coming into a game late in its life cycle. Is you like we're talking specific like live service kind of games. You get in there and there's already this,
every month or so.
Yeah, there's already this established meta. There's already all these characters that everyone else seems to know, and you're playing catch-up ball. You have to really put in the hours to catch up. And as a kid, I probably would have been able to do that. As an adult, I'm like, I don't have time for this shit.
Right. Like, that's part of the reason I don't do PvP on Elder Scrolls, is because people will kick my ass in 2 hits because they've researched the perfect way to ambush someone, and I don't. I just want to do PvE. I just want to fight computer-generated enemies that are matched to my level, so I can feel good when I get a kill. I will never get a kill in PvP.
To be fair, I played ESO on the Xbox when it first came out, and I did the PvP back then. I still like barely got anything done. It was a clusterfuck. But
yeah, it was not great.
I don't know. We're getting off in the weeds. We're talking about MMOs there at the end. They're kind of like they're a taste, an acquired taste. Some of them really hit people. Some of them don't. But either way, we're coming up on the end here. We've actually managed to keep ourselves close to the time on every single segment today. I think this is a sign. We rambled a little bit more than usual, but this is, I think, a sign that we're maybe becoming a little bit more professional. You think so?
We are the ramblers. Every single topic goes off into some weird category eventually.
But that's half the fun. If that's something you like, then hey, keep listening, because it's going to keep happening.
Yeah.
All right, gonna do a quick outro here. Any final thoughts, Blue, before I close things out?
Well, I mean, just kind of a question to everyone listening, if you are listening. Every time we hear feedback on this kind of stuff, we love to hear it. We love doing this anyway. We just chat shit all the time. If people do have any ideas, particularly around names for the show and possible segments that you want to see in the future, we would love to hear that.
Yeah, any feedback.
Otherwise, we'll just
welcome.
ramble like we have been doing.
Which, again, if you enjoy that, we're going to keep going. That's at least going to be part of the podcast. I don't think Topics is going anywhere. I think that's our most comfortable segment. But yeah,
and if you want to be like Scott and just be like, no, that's a terrible fucking idea. Don't do that. Sorry, Scott. I love you, dude. Tell us as well, because it's interesting.
Any feedback we get is welcome, and we will do our best to keep improving this thing in the way that people who listen to this want it to be improved.
Unless we don't like your ideas, in which case, fuck them. But, you know.
All right. Well, that's that. This brings us to the end of the third and final segment. Whether or not you're listening on Friday or Saturday, this is the end of the podcast. I got it right that time.
Yay!
Thank you again for listening. If indeed you have listened to this all the way to the end of the podcast, we greatly appreciate it.
Congratulations.
Because, dear God, how did you tolerate this? We'll be back again next week with another one of these. So, thank you for listening, and we will talk to you again soon.